Uh, Good morning, everyone. First of all, I would like to thank you very much, Professor Joan Dura, for inviting me to this conference. And I'm not present the paper who I was presented in Constanta, so I choose the new one. The paper is the interaction between Confucianism and Buddhism in Vietnam. Why am I choose this topic? Because it's quite different between the West and the East. For example, in the West, nearly 2,000 years, basically there is Christianity in the Western. But in the Eastern, as well as in Vietnam, we have many religions and many teachings stay together in 2,000 years. And today, I choose the two kind of traditional religion or teachings is Buddhism and Confucianism. The first period we can see is the interaction between Confucianism and Buddhism from its introduction to the 9th century and 10th century. From 1st century to the 10th century, the influence of Confucianism in Vietnam was not too much, not deeply rooted in Vietnamese culture. The number of famous Confucian can be counted on fingers, very few. But in contrast, Buddhism is quite developed with many famous Buddhist centers of that time. The first controversy between Buddhism and Confucianism in Vietnam is now from the end of the 2nd century through the quite famous works called Master Mo treatise setting down by Master Mo. And this work consists of 37 questions and answers. The question is Confucian and Taoist. Master Mo answers the question and through it to explain the correctness and legitimacy of Buddhism. That's why the debate have result in favor of Buddhism. That's why Buddhism only wins in this work. For example, the Confucian asks, if Buddhism is noble and great, why did Confucian saints such Yao, Sun, Duke of Zhou, or even Confucius not follow? Why is there no mention of Buddhism in the Confucian scriptures or Confucian classic? And Master Mo replied, books are not only written by Confucius, similar to medicine, not only Ben Cue, famous doctor of ancient China, can have them. Moreover, Confucian scripture or Confucian classics do not contain all the principles in the world, do not contain all the truth. So it's understandable not to see the Buddha in the Confucian scripture or Confucian classic. This question and this answer is quite not only famous, but the core question to another religion, especially in 19th century. Buddhism and Confucianism intellectual ask Christianity the same question. If Christianity is good, if Jesus Christ is real, why is didn't appear in Confucian scripture or Confucian classic? Because belong to them. Classics is holy. Is contain everything. Buddhism scripture as well and Confucian scripture as well. So this question and this answer is quite a formal question to each religion was introduced in Vietnam for a long history. And with such response, Master Mao explains some of the basic ideas of Buddhism, comparing the differences with Confucianism. A special feature is that also Master Mao is inclined to protect Buddhism, bringing the spirit of clarify the truth and protecting the way, but he does not radicalize the differences leading to the opposite of Buddhism. Confucianism and Taoism, on the contrary, find similarity, tend to associate Buddhism with Confucianism and Taoism, tend to merge these three religions. The interaction between Confucianism and Buddhism in Vietnam at that time, called Giao Chỉ, still took place between a Chinese official who stood on a Confucian stance, for example, in this case, Lý Miễu, and two Vietnamese monks, Thích Đạo Cao and Thích Pháp Minh. And the Confucian three question letter mentioned three issues, very important. The first that if Buddha is real, why can't we see the Buddha? And the second, Buddhism has no role in the present because Confucianism has shown it all. And the third, Buddhism has no role in the future because Confucianism has also discussed it. And these three questions continue come back to the 18th and 19th century when Christianity and Confucianism has debate with each other. If Jesus Christ is real, why don't we see him? And these three questions come back nearly 2,000 years the same. The six letters do not address many issues, but they are fundamental issues of doctrine of both sides. Here, the social role of Buddhism and Confucianism has been brought to the ideological front. And now we turn to the second period, from the 11th century to 14th century. It's Li dynasty and Chen dynasty. It's the two dynasties that Buddhism occupies a high position. And the king actively resists Confucianism, and the monks actively promotes Confucianism. It's very strange from the culture to see how Vietnamese culture deal with different religion as well as ideologies. During this period, in addition to construction of the Temple of Literature in 1070, this Temple of Literature is maybe the wrong translate. It's the Temple of Confucius Temple, and National Imperial Academy, the national central institution of higher learning, in 1075. Confucian thought was gradually used and transmitted. Published is the most important document of the state. Not only the Zen master have no aversion to and exclude Confucianism, but some Zen master also encourage and support the development of Confucianism. Not only Confucianism, Taoism is also treated like that. That's why in this period we call the combination of three religions, or we call three harmonious teachings as one, was established on the basis of Buddhism. Up to Chen Dynasty, Buddhism still play a particularly important role. And one of the most famous king who believed in Buddhism believed that Buddhism and Confucianism are responsible for human life. Above all, the three religions are similar in doing good, even in the way of self-cultivation. That's it. Not only in the goal, but also in the mean, on the purpose, on the how to do with it. At the beginning of the 14th century, Confucianism flourished. All three Vietnamese people, Chu Văn An, Trương Hán Siêu, and Đỗ Tử Bình, three famous Vietnamese Confucians, were brought to worship in the Confucius temple. It's very strange because you know that in China, just Confucius and Mencius and some discipline was worshipped in Confucius temple. But we bring some Vietnamese Confucian to the Confucius temple for worshipping. Before the development of Confucianism at the end of the Chan Dynasty, especially fearing the influence of the increasingly large Confucian Mandarin class in the emperor, some kings opposed the Confucian Mandarin regime, indirectly faculty criticism. For example, in 1370, the king once said a famous saying. He said that the imperial court or the imperial dynasty has had its own laws and regime since a long time, not according to the regulation of the Sung dynasty of China, because the south and the north are different. Which country has their own culture, does not imitate each other. However, between 1355 and 1396, kind of ignorant students were used by the state. They did not understand the deep meaning of legislation, changed the old institution of the ancestor according to the northern custom, corrupted from clothes to music, etc., is unspeakable. So we have to go back to the old dynasty. So, finish quote. Also, by the end of the 14th century, Confucianism had certain position in the imperial dynasty. But Confucianism has not yet spread into the village culture in Vietnam. In the 14th century, some Confucians criticized Buddhism and complained that Confucianism was not believed by any village, just in the central government. This was the period when Buddhism had a very strong development and social influence. Therefore, it is necessary to explain more about the reason for having Confucian education. This can be seen from two aspects. From one side, only Confucianism has imperial examination. This examination system is very important because it opens the door for everyone to change their life. At the same time, it was also a means for dynasty to select talented people to appoint to the Mandarin system. And secondly, in terms of social morality, especially social morality serving to the authorities, Confucianism had an advantage over Buddhism because the ultimate goal of Buddhism is to emerge from the world, to be liberated, while Confucian ethics is normative ethics. In addition to emphasizing self-cultivation, it set a principle of ethical conduct in social and family relationship. This is also an element that the state and contemporary society need. We change to the third period from 15th century to 18th century. During this period, Confucianism was given special importance and Buddhism was gradually banned. In 1461, the king banned localities and the noble and the Mandarins from building new pagoda, new temple, or freely casting statues for worship. And monks are forbidden to communicate with people in dynasty or the king family. And but to 16th century, it's changed. Confucianism gradually weakened, and Buddhism recovered more and more. And the thinker of this period discovered that Confucianism, Buddhism, and Taoism all had their advantage and could not separate from those great thought systems. Intellectuals hope that on basis of Vietnamese culture can combine these three major theories or three major religions to become a complete philosophical system capable of explaining and solving social and human problems at the same time. And therefore, their master Hương Hạc was in 17th century was one of such advocates. He wrote that what Confucianism helped the nation, manage the family, rules the people. And Taoism helped to improve health, peace of mind, cure disease, and prolong life. And Buddhism saved people from suffering, help people to get rid of suffering. These three religions as one, and all three must be used. End quote. And the combination of three religions of the 18th century is totally different. Not totally, but it different from that from 11th to 14th century. If before the so-called combination was based on Buddhism, but in 18th century, Confucianism played a fundamental role. And Trịnh Tuệ wrote an article called Three Religions Come from the Same Origin, in which he presented all three religions with the same origin and all united in terms of ends. He also affirmed that three religions are not different. Both Sakyamuni and Lao Tzu also belong to Confucianism. It's very strange, but he wrote that. We turn to the end of the fourth period, the 19th century. Although the combination of three religions was a major ideological trend in the 18th century, there were conflicting opinions. Many Confucians of the late 18th century opposed the combination of three religions and criticized Buddhism and Taoism. Even the first king of the Nguyen dynasty also had an anti-Buddhist attitude. And the next king was the person who deeply worshipped Confucianism. He brought Shinya. You know that the first people in the second century bring Confucianism to Vietnam to worship at the temple of our ancestor Hung King. Worship together with the ancestor of the Vietnamese nation. Nguyen dynasty want to build a Confucian culture for a whole country, considering Confucianism as the orthodox, the largest religion. All other religions, such as Buddhism, Taoism, folk beliefs, and even Christianity, are all considered to be the left-wing religion and are not supported. The Nguyen dynasty attached great importance to worship and sacrifice. The regulation of worshipping to heaven belong only to Confucian official. And if the two Buddhists and Taoists violate them, they will be charged with disrespecting and disrespecting to the God, to the heaven, and severely punished. From the middle of 19th century, when the French colonists began to invade until the end of 19th century, when the French colonists complete their invasion of Vietnam, The attitude of the Confucian to work to other ideology and other religion are some trends that are becoming more and more acute. Although it is not criticized, discriminated, even persecuted like Christianity, Buddhism does not have sympathy of some Confucian. Even famous Vietnamese patriot Confucian openly criticized Buddhism in some of his works. Right in the opening lines of his work, he criticized Buddhism and Christianity is superstition and promiscuity, praising the righteous path of Confucianism. And before the end, we conclude by some features. In the relation between the three traditional ideology and relation before modern time in Vietnam, namely Buddhism, Confucianism, and Taoism. The relationship between Buddhism and Taoism and between Confucianism and Taoism is not as prominent and profound as that of Buddhism and Confucianism. That's why I chose this topic. The combination of Buddhism and Confucianism in Vietnam is not only the result of harmonized integration between Confucianism and Buddhism in China, but also product of the tolerance of Vietnamese culture. Buddhism and Confucianism introduced into Vietnam was not only transformed in accordance with the actual condition of Vietnam, but also fused together according to Vietnamese cultural traditions. There's no really separate dialogue between Confucian on the other hand and the monk on the other hand. Between two schools or between two ideology or between two religions. Even Confucianism and Buddhism coexist in the same thinker. A monk can articulate his thoughts through Confucian concept, and conversely, a Confucian can construct his reasoning using Buddhist concept. Many people, at first being orthodox Confucianists, convert to Buddhism at the end of their life. Even some people are orthodox Confucianists in the morning, but became Buddhist in the evening, in one day. Yes. He says that a famous Confucian says that in the morning read Confucius classic, but in the evening read the Buddhist classic. Nhật Bản kinh tế, dạ kinh văn in Vietnamese. Yeah. The main trend of the dialogue between Confucianism and Buddhism is blending and harmony, not discrimination and opposition. The harmony mutual is the main, less criticism, mainly to complement each other. Confucian criticism of Buddhism is mostly not in terms of doctrine, but in terms of social management. The fact that an ideology is monopolized or made the state of religion in historical period are real even in China. This is different from in Vietnam because looking at it from a certain perspective, in Vietnam during the feudal period, both Buddhism and Confucianism never had an ideology that was monopolized, absolutized to eliminate. In China, there is an anti-Buddhist activities, but there is no such thing in Vietnam. In each stage, one of the two ideology and religions will act as a foundation. From 10th to 14th century, Confucianism and Buddhism fused with Buddhism as a foundation. Gradually, in the 17th and 18th century, it was a fusion of Confucianism as the foundation. The way of thinking. We call eclectic and inclusive way of thinking. Although this attitude and ways of doing things make the worldview of Confucianism completely and has the basic to deal with situation of life. On the other hand, it also creates a closed worldview that prevent access to other progressive through movements. History shows that in the modern times, many Vietnamese Confucians was confused and opposed to the spreading trend of Western modern scientific and democratic thought. Among many reasons, in our opinion, there is a cause of the ideology of combination of three religions. The three religions have different content and nature. Why is three policy of combination of three religion? In fact, it's due to the thinking level of the contemporaries at that time, the need of their spiritual life, and also the narrow content of the three religion. We call the limitation of the of all three religion, especially Buddhism and Confucianism in Vietnam at that time. To supplement this problem at the time, there is no other suitable religion beside Confucianism. The fourth of three religions form a complete worldview, enough to meet spiritual need of people at that time. It's my conclusion, and thank you very much. Thank you.